Hello and welcome into the Next Gen podcast here on the Bluff City Media Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Bryson Wright, and we're joined by my co-host, Alex Winton. And we got a really good show coming in today. We're going to talk mostly about finishing up our conversation on the Summer League from last week, get into our rotation predictions post-Summer League, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about what Jaren has looked like in some of his offseason workouts as we have gotten more videos of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and then talk about what we think he's going to be doing like this summer and then especially going into FIBA. But got to start with Summer League. And all in all, for summer, I'd say Summer League was a success for the Grizzlies. Like I said, going into it, it's not always about wins and losses. And I know they ended up being 2-3 overall. I really say they were 2-2 because nobody played in that last game. So they were basically 2-2. So not the greatest results, wise. But when you look at the players that needed to play well, they all, at least like I said last week, showed flashes. And then I really feel like both Jake LaRavia and Kenneth Lofton Jr., like those last like 2 or 3 Summer League games that they really played, it gave me a lot of like confidence in both of them that both of them are good enough to get NBA rotation minutes. Now, obviously, the Grizzlies are not going to need them to be, main players and stuff like that, like they were for the Summer League team. Like that's just not a need for the Grizzlies right now. But when I saw Jake in those situations when he was more catch and shoot, I thought he did pretty well. And I thought he did better on defense too. I think that was something that was really important for him. I thought he did better on defense just the entire Summer League. He looked more aggressive, a little bit more explosive. I'm not going to say that he's going to be like the starting small forward or something anytime soon. But if you're talking about just a guy who can come off the bench and hit threes, I think he showed that he has the ability to do it. Like I said, it's still just going to come down to consistency from him. I have no doubt that he can make open threes. It's just going to be how often he does it. And then for Kenneth Lofton Jr., I mean, both of them average 18 points per game. And then Lofton, I think really his efficiency is what stood out to me because he was shooting 51% from the field and he shot 46%. I had to look it up because I thought they were lying. Like I knew that he did good from 3. Like it felt like he did good, but when I saw he was 46% from 3, like now I'm not saying he's going to do that in the NBA because that would make him one of the best shooters in the NBA. I don't think he's that level, but if you've got a guy that can score inside, can score in the mid-range, and can shoot the 3 that well, or even if it's only 38, 39%, I think he warrants to get some minutes. So, yeah, I think that was some really takeaways. We'll get into more guys going forward, but I wanted to just get what your first takeaways from it were as well.
Yeah, I think for me, those are probably the 2 guys that stand out the most, obviously from the Summer League, Jake and Kenny. I think obviously I'm more – I want to say I'm not interested in Kenny, what he does, but Jake obviously is at a position where that's more of a need and a question mark. So everything that he kind of does along with Roddy and Vince Williams and all those guys, I'm looking more under a microscope because they're probably going to be those guys that are going to they're going to have to be put in that position or have that opportunity to get those minutes. So like with Jake to start, I mean, again, the really main thing from last Summer League to this one is aggressiveness. Last year, he would only look to score or shoot the ball maybe like 2 or 3 times a game. Like there was times he's passing up these shots. The same shots he took this Summer League, he would pass them up last Summer League. And I mean, he even said that. He was talking about like my aggression is better this year. Like I'm not really overthinking it. Like I'm taking these shots with confidence. And again, like that shows like he took the most shots on the team. Like I'm looking at right now, he averaged 14 shots a night. And he wasn't efficient with it, but I'm not really mad about efficiency. Now, that's not to say I don't care about efficiency. I would like to see efficiency, but I'm not going to go crazy about it when I see the context of it, when I watch it. Like, I like all the looks he got. And I'm pretty sure, again, I think in a better situation, he'll knock those down. Because even last year, I think he was at least like 33, 34% in the games he played from 3. So I'm not too worried about it. Like, I think he'll get those same looks, obviously, with better talent. And again, like you said, defensively, he was pretty solid for the most part. There's some finishing struggles, but there was times that he showed he could finish at the rim. And again, that would get better, I think, obviously, as he gets more reps and stuff and obviously gets stronger. So, I was very pleased with what I saw from Jake. Again, like, I don't know if he's going to be starting Obviously, I don't know all that, but I think he'll warrant some rotation minutes at least, or some looks like he did last year. Hopefully, it's just more so about him staying healthy and keeping those minutes. Because last year he got hurt, and then that basically put him behind the 8 ball for ever getting back into rotation. That's part of the reason why Roddy stayed in it. As for Kenny, yeah, he was efficient this summer league, which I wasn't really too surprised by. Obviously, this, like I said, last episode or episode before this is his setting, so I'm not really surprised by what he was doing. I think more so the surprise came from the 3 points attempts, like not the attempts, but really percentage. So basically, like he was at 46, 47%, like you were talking about. And it wasn't a lot of attempts. I think it was on 3.8 attempts, basically 4 attempts a game, and he made like 2. But that's still decent enough clip.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
especially enough for the minutes that they would be looking at him to play, like it wouldn't be that out of the ordinary for him to take. I think he could probably get 2 or 3 attempts a game, even if he only plays, 12 minutes or however much they would let him play. So now I thought it was a positive because I think that was the main thing that I noticed that was better than last summer league was the jumper from the outside, like the mid range. I think was always there. Like he had a mid range last year, and not to say that he didn't make any threes last year. He made some threes, but it really felt like that was something. And he also said it in one of the post games that he's working on getting better at everything. Obviously, like all these players are trying to get better all around, but that he did have an emphasis on being able to shoot. Because, I mean, obviously, when you look at today's NBA, that's the best way to get on the court is be able to be a catch and shoot threat. If you're a catch and shoot threat, you can stay in the league forever, like at this point. So I think that's something that he really worked on. And I think it showed up. It showed up in the summer league. Like there's no question about that.
Yeah, I think and that's the thing with this team. Like if you can shoot the ball, you're gonna get minutes usually. Like that's part of it. Like usually don't play anybody that can't shoot. Like usually if you can shoot, they're gonna play you. Not if you're of stature. Like I think that usually they don't play anybody that can't. Like if you can shoot, you're gonna have an opportunity. And that's the thing. He said he's worked on the shooting. Like our big spot has a couple guys that are non-shooters, like him. I'm not saying Loft is a non-shooter, but just off of history, they haven't shot the ball well. Him, X, BC. But if one of those guys can shoot, they're probably gonna give them more leeway, or not more leeway, more opportunity to play. Because, like you said, especially in today's NBA, I mean, even JJ Redick, I think you talked about it. Like, you can't be somebody they could just ignore. Like, it's gonna be very hard to play. You're just a guy that can just be ignored on the floor, especially when it comes to the postseason, which is mainly what the emphasis is. All this is about that Kleiman has made is how can we be good in postseason basketball. So. Again, if Lofton's going to shoot like this, obviously, I think that warrants obviously minutes, and I think obviously the defense too, if he can be decent on that end. And I think really, again, that would be more so of a Jenkins thing. I think his minutes, if he can play him with Jaren, I think that's the best way where you really see him shine in those opportunities. But yeah, I mean, I think he was solid. Obviously, again, they played through him most of the time. Like him and Jake were like the main 2 guys they played through a lot of the time. The summer league. So I mean, they played pretty well. I really don't have too many complaints about how they played. Like I didn't see, like again, I've said before, I didn't see anything that I was really worried about. Like, oh man, they did this wrong, or like, man, I'm really concerned. Like I wasn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, because I also think like they're going to be with better players. Like, no disrespect to the players they had on the team, but like they're going to be with John Morant, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bain. You know what I mean? Marcus Smart. Like they're going to be with guys like actual rotation, all-star level guys. So I think that's going to be a big difference too. So yeah.
Yeah, and then I think like we talked about, like Jake wasn't super efficient. I think that would really be the main thing that would make me a little worried going into the season is that he wasn't efficient just overall. He had a couple bad shooting games, and I do think his scoring average got inflated a little bit because he got to the free throw line a lot. Like not to say that he shouldn't be trying to get to the free throw line. It shows that he was more aggressive, but it's going to be how much of that is going to work in the NBA, like you said, against better players. Are you going to be able to get to the free throw line as much as he was? And now when he got there, he made his free throws, which is something the Grizzlies also needed, somebody that can knock down free throws. So, that's still a good sign in that way. But I think that would be my only takeaway that would be negative would be, his efficiency. And then are there going to be as many scoring opportunities or opportunities for him to get to the free throw line in regular NBA games like he got in the summer league? But I did want to move on to some of the other players too, because I got to talk about David Roddy as well. He really struggled in like his shooting, like 3-point shooting a lot. He only shot, I think, like 16-17% from three. And
Yeah,
he just had he has some struggles from beyond the arc. And I think that was the main thing that would be a disappointment, just because in Salt Lake City, it looked like he was shooting the ball very, very well. And then it kind of just fell off when when they got to Las Vegas. But on the other hand, I did think that he looked better and more comfortable with the ball in his hand. And I think he talked about in one of the post game press conferences too, is that he's working on, once he gets to the paint, slowing down and making good decisions, not just running into people and trying to like run people over as much, and also trying to find his teammates a lot more. And I think that's something that I did notice, is I thought he did better as a passer. I know he had at least one game where he had 6 assists. And a couple, he had assists in every game and had some really nice passes. So I think that was something that was definitely a positive in terms of David Roddy, even though he didn't shoot the ball well. And then, like I said, he didn't shoot the ball well. He only shot 17% from three, but he was still like 46, 47% from the floor overall. So that means on all the other shots, he was pretty good on the other shots. On the non 3-point attempts, he was pretty efficient. And I think that is a positive thing because, obviously he's going to have to be able to make some threes, but having a guy that you can throw the ball to and he can drive and kind of use his strength on the interior to get some easy buckets, I think that can help him too. And like I said, he's going to be in a bench role. They're not going to be asking him to do as much as he was doing in Summer League. It really felt like he was kind of like one of the leaders of the Summer League team, really like him and Lofton were the guys that are really supposed to be leading the team along with Laravia, like all the second year guys basically. So going to be a lot different of a role for him. But like I said, he's going to get some open threes. And I feel like after last season, we know he's a better shooter than he was in the Summer League. He's streaky, but there's going to be some streaks where he's way better than that. And his shooting was basically probably as bad as it is ever going to be. And besides that, like he still was making positive impacts on all those games on defense. And I think that's really the biggest thing is like he's going to be a really good defender, and he gives the Grizzlies a little bit more, just another option of somebody who can create their own shot, get to the rim and do a lot of that, which is, I think that's something that they struggled with in the playoffs last year. So all in all, there were some struggles for Roddy. He's going to be in a big battle coming into training camp. Like all these guys are going to be in a big battle for minutes coming into training camp. So I think that would be the only thing, I'm a little bit worried about it and maybe a little bit lower on him than I was coming into Summer League, but it's not to say that he's not going to play. I still think he's going to play. I still think he's going to get minutes, and I still think he can be better overall than he was this summer.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say I'm lower on him, but I think I kind of expect where I had him at anyway is kind of where I had him to be. Like, even at like before the Summer League, I still have him at the same place, which was like rotation guy. I felt like for me personally, Jake, and obviously we'll talk, or with Zaire, he didn't play, but like those guys, I feel like have more of a chance to be at the starting wing position just based off their size and what they offer as upside. But I think Roddy alone still is going to probably play anyway, just off the simple fact, like you said, even though he wasn't making shots, he was still impacting the game in a lot of different ways. Because I think he still averaged 14, and then I think he shot 48% from the field. So he's still scoring outside of the three. But obviously for this team, if you're going to play, you need to be able to hit threes. That's just what it is. And he's very streaky. Like he was streaky last year. Like he had stretches where he shot the ball like from 20, I think like 20% from three. And there were a couple of stretches he shot 35. And I mean, that's kind of how it was for him in college too, in a sense. Like he would have, like I think his first couple years he shot the ball average, but then that last year in college he shot like 40% from three. So he might be a streaky guy, or he might be a league average guy. You're hoping that it's more of a league average thing than a streaky guy. But again, that still takes time, obviously. Because it's hard for me to see him shoot 17% from three on the actual season. Because even in his bad stretches last year, he shot, I think, ended up shooting like 30% from three, which is not great, but it's not 17%. You know what I mean? That's a drastic, big difference. So yeah, no, he was pretty solid in a lot of areas. I think him getting to the rim was encouraging, but he still has to be better finishing there. I think he's still learning how to use his body when he gets to the rim. Because again, he's not the most athletic guy, like the quickest or most explosive guy. So to compensate for that, kind of like how I'm not saying how Bane does it, but basically when you're bigger and stronger like that, you got to be able to use your body better, have better body control, and be able to finish through contact and things like that. So I think he's still trying to adjust to that. But obviously you'll take that. Like you said, he's one of the leaders of the summer league team. He obviously played well. Like he did the high IQ little stuff, which is what you need anyway. If you're not gonna hit shots, you still need to be able to impact in the game. Like we had those guys. Like you can't be a guy that's out there not impacting the game in other ways, or if you can't impact the game in other ways. If you're not shooting the ball, then it's gonna be hard for you to play. Like it's gonna be hard. So I'm encouraged by that. I think again, like it's probably he wouldn't like the summer league obviously for shooting. Overall, like he's probably thinking to himself like, man, I could have shot the ball way better, but it's kind of like, it is what it is. Like the looks weren't bad. Like, a lot of them were. I mean, of course, some of them were like off the dribble and stuff like that. But again, I think they wanted him to take those looks anyway because this is summer league. So they want him to get, have those reps and confidence. They did the same thing with Jake, obviously Lofton too. They want those guys to take those shots because, they might not get those, even though those opportunities will be limited in the summer or in the regular season. They might get those chances in the regular season to have that type of shot. And so you need these reps now. So when you do get there, even if it's in a limited setting or a lower usage, you'll be fine. So yeah, I'm not really too disappointed with Roddy's summer league, if at all. Like maybe I expected more, but I'm not like drastically like, oh man, he just played all the way bad. Because it's not like he was bad the whole time. Like I mean, even though Utah was part of the other summer league, he was good in that first game, like really good offensively. Then there was a couple games where he still had flashes of being solid. Like again, like he wouldn't shoot the ball well, but he still shot 48%. That still basically was really solid. So yeah, I'm not really too discouraged by David Roddy summer league. I expect him to be better. Obviously, again with better players. Again, I think that makes a lot of difference. A lot of these guys, I'm looking at them in the context of how they fitting next to the main guys, and I mean, I think he'll still fit fine. It's just still going to come down to the main thing, which is shooting the ball, because that's what they need. They need more shooting. So to shore up their offense in half court and just in general. So yeah, that's really the big thing. But I wasn't really too discouraged with what Roddy did. So I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad you mentioned the shooting part because I did want to talk a little bit about Vince Williams Jr. too. I really feel like, especially in those Utah games, I mean, he was shooting over 50% from three in those Utah games, and he really just showed that if he gets open looks, he's going to be able to knock them down. And I think that's something that's not going to change whether he's playing in the NBA, the G League, or the Summer League. Like, I think that was the big thing is if he gets open looks, he's going to be able to knock them down. So like that was the number one thing that I saw that was really a positive. And I really think that on defense, it wasn't even just like his one-on-one defense, but like his help defense, his hustle, getting out for loose balls, all that kind of stuff. It really it felt like when he was on the court, the team kind of just bought into defense a lot more. And it wasn't like just him, it was everybody else, and everybody else kind of fed off of what he did, kind of like what a guy like Tony Allen would do, or a guy like DeAnthony Melton did, which I've seen a lot of people talk about him being basically tall DeAnthony Melton, taller DeAnthony Melton. And I could really see that. And I think, when you look at the way that he's really good in the passing lanes, he's good, like one-on-one defense, and then just getting out in transition, open threes. I think that he's probably not going to be in the rotation this year because we're going to get into that. But he's a guy that if there's some guys that go down or whatever, I think like I would not be worried if he has to come in and get minutes at all, because I think that's really going to be his role. I think like him and like Conchar and some of those guys, that's going to be kind of their role. Whereas if everybody's healthy, they're not going to be playing. But I think we're going to see a lot more Vince Williams Jr. this year than we did last season. And I think he proved in the summer league, especially like I said, especially in Utah, that he's got a chance to be at least a rotation player down the line. Now, like I said, it might not be this year, but he has that ability. And I think that, if he does get an opportunity to show that this year at any time, I think that he'll prove, on a bigger stage, I think he'll be able to prove it as well. So I know that he had like kind of a tough end to last year because he shot the ball really well, like really badly in that last game. But it was really good to kind of see him bounce back and just have a lot of confidence in the games that he did play. I know he did get hurt and he missed a couple games, and I think that did throw off his summer league a lot. But I'm mostly talking about what I saw before he got hurt. And then even after he got hurt, he was still playing awesome on defense in that last game when he came back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I'm looking at it now. Like he only played 2 games in Vegas and only played like an average 18 minutes. Like his numbers weren't great. Like you said, he was still defending. Like you said, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about more so is Utah. And I mean, he was pretty solid. Again, like you said, like him being able to hit shots and then being able to guard, like that's going to get you a role and a look, especially in a team that needs that role, especially at the wing. So I think that's kind of the thing. You know, I don't know what they're going to do with Vince. Like you said, I hope I wouldn't be surprised if they said, hey, they try to. I'm not going to say go because they still got a roster crunch, but like let's say they try to move some guys or cut some guys in and they sign him. Like I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, just to do it now, or they might wait. But I do think, like you said, he'll get more opportunity because I think again they're gonna have rest days, even though the new CBA says something about all the games played and how that goes to the awards. Even then, they're still gonna have some rest days. Might not be as many, but they'll still have some rest days. So there will be guys that will have opportunity to play. He will be one of those guys to play, or we'll just have an injury because that's just gonna happen. Like I hope we're healthy 90%, 95% of the time, but that just is not realistic. So, yeah, so he'll probably have some opportunity to play. And again, if he's hitting shots like this and defending like this, I mean, he deserves to play. Like that, wings that can knock down threes and guard multiple positions are premium. Like you need them. So every team's looking for them. So including us. So if you got one, they're going to try to find minutes for them. That's just what it is. So I mean, I was pretty pleased with Vince Williams Summer League. Again, like you said, a lot of it. I think the injury kind of messed him up. And in terms of offensively, at least for me, like at least in Vegas, he didn't seem like the same shot maker. But I wasn't too concerned because again, like I don't know what I forgot what the injury was for real. But I mean,
they never really came out and said officially what it was. So
yeah, they never really said it, but but again, it had to be some type of any type of injury can throw off your rhythm, especially when you're playing this many games in this short amount of time. 1 or 2 days off can throw your whole rhythm off. So I'm not really surprised that it did. But like you said, he's still defending, and so that's still an encouraging sign. So Vince Williams, I probably say was probably the biggest surprise of it because especially in Utah, he was knocking down shots like at a high clip. And he was shooting the ball like this even in the G League last year, I think, to some extent. But even then, like not everybody got to see the G League games, so like not a lot of people knew about that. So yeah, no, I think Vince Williams had a good summer league, and again, I think he has opportunity to play. We'll see how it works, but I would not be surprised if they get him on a contract type deal down the line, where it's like a 3 or 4 year deal, and it ends up looking like a solid deal for a player that of his skill set, what they can offer. So he's pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like we've talked about it a little bit, but I did want to go ahead and get kind of into what our next topic is going to be. And that is our rotation predictions for next season, kind of post Summer League. So I will say, like I said, coming into the Summer League, the biggest question was going to be who all was going to be playing at the wing position. And also, what are they going to do with the Ja suspension? How are they going to navigate that? So I'll start at the beginning of the season because Ja's not going to be there for, as of now, 25 games. We'll see if that changes at all. We know there's probably going to be an appeal coming up, and who knows exactly what's going to happen. But let's keep it right now, 25 games. And for me, obviously, they're going to start Marcus Smart at point guard. I think that's like the number one thing. We know Jaren and Steven Adams are going to be power forward and center, and we know Desmond Bane is going to be in the starting lineup. The real question for me is, are they going to play Desmond Bane at the 3 and, bring in, and play like a Luke Kennard at shooting guard? Or are they going to let Desmond Bane, continue to play his traditional 2-guard spot and then let one of the young guys, whether that's like Zaire Williams, I'd say Zaire Williams is probably going to be, if they decide to start a young guy at the 3, it would probably be Zaire just because he's done it before. Maybe there's a chance for a guy like Roddy or Laravia, but I think if it's any of them, it will probably be Zaire. But for me, I think that to start the season, I would not be mad at them going with that a little bit smaller lineup, like I said, with, Ja, Kennard, Bane, and really focus on the spacing. Obviously, there's going to be times where, Bane is going to be a little bit undersized on defense for some wing players, but I still, he's still a good defender. There's some things he can't physically do because of, wingspan issues and stuff like that. But it's I don't think he's just gonna go out there and get killed if he plays small forwards. I don't think just whoever we're playing against every night is just gonna have 30 on him or something. Like I don't think it's that big of a drop off. And then when you look on the other side, having the added spacing of both Kennard and Bane on the floor at the same time, we saw how awesome that was, especially in the postseason, playing both of them together. So, especially when you have a guy like Marcus Smart, who on any given night is probably going to be taking the best offensive threat on the other team, whether they're a guard or a forward. So that means that if you're playing a better small forward, maybe you slide Marcus Smart to him and then you let Desmond Bane guard somebody else. So I think there's a lot of stuff you can do in that. And I think just the added spacing on the other end and the fact that you would still have 2 defensive player of the years on the court, because even if you do, like, if Kennard gets blown by, you know, he's running into Jaren and he's running into even Steven Adams, who, when he was healthy last year, was a really good defender too. So I think that's probably the lineup they go with to start. And I want to be surprised if they keep going with a smaller lineup with just Jaren and Steven Adams on the interior. Because it's kind of weird to say it's a smaller lineup because it really doesn't feel like a smaller lineup in the front court, just because so many teams don't do the 2 big man thing anymore. So it's like, I feel like you like kind of compensate for being smaller in the backcourt with being, bigger power forward, bigger center, and stuff like that. So that's the way that I would kind of look at it. And I think, Desmond Bane was playing the 3 a good amount of time last year. I don't know exactly what the percentages are, but there's a lot of times where he would slide over to the 3. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start him at that. And then the good thing is, if it doesn't work out early in the season, they can at least know that going forward, and then they can start a guy like Zaire or Roddy or Laravia or somebody if they really feel like it's that big of a difference. But I don't think it will be. I think that they'll be fine starting those guys to start the season.
Yeah, I think obviously with the starting lineup, I think Bane and Jaren are obviously the guarantees. I think Smart is too pre-Josh suspension. I would say Adams is not because Adams is not good, but I only worry because of how Zach Kleiman has said his injury. We hope to have Steven Adams back by the beginning of the season. That kind of concerns me a little bit because it's like hope. Like I think shout out to Rob Fisher. I think he says this. We got a lot of hope going on. We hope guys do this. Hope. So they hope that Steven Adams healthy. I hope that he is too. So if not, it'll be X. Either way, Adams or X. That's at the center. Jaren, obviously Bane, and then Smart. The wing spot, like you said, is the tricky spot because they might go Luke and they might be like, okay, we saw the shooting last year with those two because based on the numbers, especially in the regular season, those last like 20, 25 games, when Bane and Luke were on the court as a wing duo, guard duo, however you want to say it, on the court, they were blitzing teams, like bad, very bad. Like I remember reading something about it, like they were doing that very like blitzing teams, and I get it. Those type of shooters on the court with John Morant and usually Jaren Jackson or somebody like that creates a lot of space. Your offense flows a lot better, so they might opt for that. With Bane a little bit on the wing, because since Bane is what 6'5", 6'6". They say he's 6'6", he's probably more 6'5". But even what they might do that. I definitely could also see them do the Santi thing, right? Like last year, like they put Santi in the starting lineup as a second-year guy. I could definitely see them put Jake in the starting lineup, or like you said, Zaire in the starting lineup. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Like the first 25, and then if it doesn't work, like you said, they probably go away from it. But I wouldn't be surprised by that. I honestly think that's what they might do, not because they might say, hey, we like Luke better off in this bench role, which is not bad. Because again, I think you don't want they could be like, oh well, we want to use his scoring off the bench or have some type of bench production. So they might go that and opt for a guy that's more of a connector in the starting lineup, like a Zaire that we've seen before, or a guy like Jake if he's showing that he can hit shots at 6'7" and then be a connector. offensively, and then be decently, defensively. Like I think he could get the nod. And then that way they might move, them back out of the start lineup when Jaren gets back. Who knows? But yeah, I can see that go happen at least for the starting five. So I think they got a lot of options. I think that's the thing. Like like you said, like they're undersized on the wing if they go Luke, and Bane, or they go Bane and Smart at the wing at one point. Who knows? Like I'm just saying, like that's post job. But like they're banking on like that Jaren and Adams can compensate for that, and just having a guy like Smart who's an All NBA defender, they're banking on those guys being like top of the line to where you don't really have to worry about the lack of wing size. So, they got a lot of options, which I think that's kind of like what they keep talking about. They've mentioned it. Zach mentioned it. I think Taylor mentioned it. Like versatility. They want versatility, and I'm here for it because you need to be able to play different ways and have different options, because that's what the playoffs is. It's about matchups, and if you're a one-dimensional team and you can't adjust on the fly, then you're going to probably go home early. Like that's just what it is. Like whether that's you being a team that can be a good team in offense, or transition on offense and in the half court, or defensively, can you switch, or can you do all this other stuff? Can you play big? Like you have to be able to be versatile. So I think they got a lot of options. I would lean probably they start a young guy like they did with Santi. If those guys show the same improvement that they showed in the summer league, but they could go with Luke. I think those are two good options. So I'm not really gonna be mad at either one, especially before the John gets back. Like you're gonna be trying stuff in those first 25 games anyway. Like they did that last year. So the rotation that was in games 1 through 10 wasn't the same rotation in games 70 through 80. So it's gonna be a long season. They're gonna try to figure things out on the fly, obviously. So and they'll have time to be able to figure out. So I'm not really gonna be too like either of those options are fine for me.
Yeah, and I like that you said Santi too, because there is a possibility that they try to play him at the 3 as well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they try some of that. I know that it will be kind of tough maybe for him defensively, just because he doesn't really have the foot speed right now. I mean, that's probably would be the biggest thing, is if he can work on that lateral quickness and stuff like that. I think that's something that could help him a lot, and maybe he would become a 3, in the future. I think there's a possibility that he could become that. But I mean, right now he's probably still going to be more, backup power forward, backup center. But I think you will see some lineups where, they might go Smart and Bane and then go Santi, Jaren, Adams, or maybe even, Santi, Santi and X in the front court or something like that in bench units. So I think Santi is going to be big for them this year, just because I think he's going to have some positional, like he's going to be able to go back and forth, play multiple positions. I'd say the same for Laravia. I think Laravia is going to play a lot more, and I think he's probably going to play the 3, and he's probably going to play the 4 in some of those small ball lineups. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of that, but I think that for the starting 5 for me, I still think like I said, it's going to be probably Smart, Bane, Kennard, Jaren, and then Adams. And then I think the real thing is going to be if they do decide to go with Zaire or somebody to start, how early do they bring Luke off the bench, and who does he come in for? Like, I think that could be something that could be interesting too. So if they do say, okay, we're going to start Zaire, we're going to keep Luke off the bench, we're going to bring Luke off the bench, but we're going to, bring Luke in for Marcus Smart, move Desmond Bane over to point guard, so you can still get those Bane and Kennard minutes, because that's something else that's I think they're going to see a lot of. Is you're going to see sometimes where Bane is playing point guard a lot more than you did in the last couple years. I think just because they now Marcus Smart is going to do it once Ja gets back to be like a backup point guard, and obviously they have Derrick Rose, who I think he's going to get some minutes too. But I think we're going to see a lot of times, Marcus Smart starts the game. They might bring in Kennard if he's not already in the game as a starter. They might bring Kennard in, take Smart out, so you can have, Bane and Kennard. And then, Derrick Rose really be the backup point guard, like in a later substitution, kind of what they would do a little bit with Tyus last year, where, he wouldn't always come in right when Ja went out, they might bring somebody like Luke off the bench and then just move Bane over and then bring Tyus in later. Like that's kind of some of the stuff they did. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do some similar stuff this year.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think Rose obviously does like play a lot in those pre-25. Like so, I definitely could see Bane playing those point guard spots, but I do think they'll probably give him a lot of minutes because I think they do trust Rose to be a solid presence there. Because again, I think with Rose, I think people look at his last year and be like his numbers weren't as great as the last 2 years prior, but people don't realize like his role wasn't consistent last year, and he even said that before. Like they were giving the young guys more of a look. So I think now with a more consistent role, at least in the first 25, I think you'll see better production from him. So I definitely could see him take those minutes and they, still have Bane and Kennard on the wings. Or like you said, Bane at the point or Luke at the point, and if they want to go with a bigger lineup, like they said, they got a lot of versatility to be able to do it to some extent, especially when you got a guy like Jaren being able to cover up a lot defensively. Obviously Adams too, but just Jaren, obviously he's the defense player of the year. You can kind of get away with certain lineups, like smaller lineups or lineups that are not bigger on the wing because if everybody else is solid defensively and he's the back line, like you're in a decent spot. You know what I mean? Like not everybody has a Jaren Jackson Jr. where they can be able to are allowed to do this. So I think that makes a big difference, obviously. But yeah, no, I mean I'm ready to see it. I'm not really too worried about the combinations. There's not a lot of combinations that I might not hate in terms of what Jenkins does for real. Now, I say that now, but when we get there, I could change my mind. I'm just gonna let y'all know that now. I could see it and I'd be like, this is not it. But the way I'm thinking right now, it's hard for me to see it. You really have to go really some wonky lineups for me not to be like, okay, I see the vision. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll work out. But again, like I said, they're gonna try probably this stuff, training camp, preseason, first 25 games. Like it's gonna be a process probably, or it might not. It might shape out to the point to them they're like, oh, this guy clearly should play. Jake clearly should play. Zaire clearly should play, or Smart and Bane or Luke clearly should start. Like they might do that. Like it might play out like that. But again, it's to be determined. So, we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm just glad they got some at least decent options to start the season when it comes to like their lineups or rotations.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last thing is whenever Ja does come back, whatever game that is, I'm still big that they're probably going to go Ja Smart Bane. Like I still think that's going to be the lineup we see a lot of. I think you're also going to see some, Ja Bane Zaire, just because those three playing together. They started most of the games together on a team to won 56 games. So I think that's something that they'll be like, we've seen it happen before. Zaire did get hurt, and I think that really just derailed his entire second season. The injury just derailed his entire second season. So I'm not ready to say that the guy that we saw in the first year, just doesn't exist anymore. Because I don't think, I don't like he didn't just forget how to play basketball, I think that the injury might have hurt his confidence a little bit, but I think, coming back 100% healthy and all that, I think there's a chance that we do see him. And, but I do think, like I said, I think he'll probably start on the bench. But if he starts to look like the player that he was, his rookie year, I wouldn't be surprised if they do more, Ja Smart or Ja Bane Zaire lineups as well as Ja Smart Bane. But I think when Ja first comes back, it's going to be a lot of those three together. Just because, like I talked about Marcus Smart, he can basically guard anybody if you have to. If you tell him to guard somebody who's 6'8", 6'9", he's done it before. And I know that last year he was injured, and it might be, it was a little tough for him at the end of last year, I feel like. But once he got to the playoffs, it really felt like he was still close to that same level of player that he was before the injury. So I think that was big too. But yeah, and it will be a similar thing to, like I said, with before, if they decided to play Bane and Kennard together, it does make you a little bit smaller on the wings, just because, like I said, Desmond Bane would still basically be the only wing guy out there. But all in all, I do think that they can make up for it, on the other end. Just I think they'll make up for it with the extra offense, maybe, if they do lose some stuff on defense. But you still have Jaren Jackson Jr. on the interior. Like you said, you still have Marcus Smart. It's not like those guys are slouches on defense. So I think that that's going to be the lineup they start with, and then we'll see them tweak it from there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to go. Because again, like I said, it's a long season. They say it all the time, but even as and I know it seems like it sometimes it be going by fast, but the NBA season is very long. Like you've said before, it's
Very.
almost year round long to some extent if you count off season. But I'm talking about from a game standpoint, they start in like October, and then they go all the way till most teams to like the summer. So like it's a long season. So they're going to try a lot of different things, especially early on when you have that time to. Because again, we've seen this team be able to start good. Like last year, they started out solid, and then the year before they started out 9-10 and won 56 games. So like I'm not really too worried about the start. So like they're gonna try to experiment some things, and they experimented in both of those times. They did try to try different things with rotations and stuff. So I'm confident that they'll be able to figure it out. I don't really have too many doubts about the rotation, at least early on. I think they got enough solid play. Like they have a big enough sample size to me at this point where as long as you got, not to say they don't need everybody else healthy, but it's when you got two of your core guys, two of your core three guys and Jaren, and Bane on the court, and everybody else is pretty solid. Majority of the time, history is showing you're going to be a good team. Right? That's just what it is. Like those guys are that good. So as long as Jaren and Bane are healthy, I'm not that concerned at all. So at least the first 25 games I won't be. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then before we move on to Jaren, I did just want to throw out. I know we didn't talk about GG Jackson in the summer league thing, and I'm not saying he's going to be in the rotation this year. If we're having this conversation next year, I think he's going to become a factor into it. But I did just want to go ahead and throw out there that I did like what I saw from him in the summer league. He was streaky. Kind of had some up and downs. But in terms of a talent level, I think that when we're doing pods like this time next year, we're going to have some real conversations about where GG Jackson can fit into the lineup. And maybe later in the year, if he goes to South Haven and he is just balling out, like he could play himself into, maybe getting some minutes, in the regular season. But I just wanted to at least throw that out there just because I know a lot of people were really excited to watch him. And I thought he played well in the summer. I don't think he's really going to be. I think he's probably, like I said, he's probably going to be on a two-way, mostly in South Haven. But there's a real chance that he is going to crack the rotation very soon.
Yeah, I think he played solid as well. We didn't talk about him obviously because again, I think he's going to be a South Haven guy. Respectfully, just he's 18 years old. Again, let me repeat this: he's 18 years old. He does not turn 19 until December. Same birthday month as me. So he's going to be he needs the reps, all he can get. So I have no problem with him going to be in South Haven. South Haven, I can't talk. Them jerseys are going to sell very well. He's going to play well. I expect him to play well. And there's going to be a lot of people at hustle games. I see it now. Just a lot of people going to be at hustle games. And people either going to be at the games or they're going to watch the games. Because GG is going to, he's going to have some moments and plays where you're like, dang, he's only 18, 19 doing that? So, and obviously you have some plays where you're he make you remember he is 18 and 19, but that's all part of the process. So, GG is pretty solid. That was the same way for the summer league. He had some ups and downs, but he showed what I thought he could show. And I wasn't really too mad about it. Again, he's 18, 19. I keep going to the age because he needs the reps. So, all this is rep and experience based. So, I think that's all he needs. And so, I think he'll have a good year, especially with the hustle. But like you said, if he balls out, he might work his way up to the rotation or to being a contract guy. Who knows? You know what I mean? But we'll see how it goes.
Definitely. And then I did want to move on to our last segment here just because, it's getting that time of the year where you're starting to see some of the players post what they're doing in the offseason. And shout out to Jaren for using Chris Johnson hoops because I don't know who all these other dudes use as trainers. And also Zaire's been using them too. But I feel like he just does such a good job of, I feel like he has the best angles in terms of what they're doing, and he really does show you a little bit of what they're doing. And I think that he does a good job of kind of, putting some runs together too, which we'll probably see later in the year, because I think he posted a lot of them with Ja and Jaren and a lot of guys the last couple of years. So shout out to that. Shout out to him, because I think he does a great job. And when you see that the way, Jaren worked out with him, some the last couple off seasons too. So, and you see how much better he's gotten on offense. So I think that's the big thing that I noticed too, is they're working on the right stuff from the videos we've seen, post counters and stuff, learning to go to the right, he's doing really good on spins and stuff like that, and really working on his footwork. Because like I always say, Jaren is basically learning how to score now because he talked about it on we talked about it when he went on the Paul George podcast. Like, he's never really been asked to be a scorer before until now, whether it was AAU, whether it was college, and even his first couple years in the NBA, he's never been like a main option until now. And this is one of the first times where he's really having time to, get this feedback and go back and work on what, all the things that he can improve on. And it's really crazy because, this is about to be year 6 for Jaren, but he's still so young. He still has a lot of room to grow. So I think that we're just going to continue to see some of that growth. I'm very excited to see what he looks like in FIBA after I've seen this, just because FIBA basketball is so, post dependent, interior defense. They play through the post way more overseas than they do in the NBA. So, and I think that's something that we've seen on the Team USA teams as well. Even a guy like Carmelo, even though he's not the same kind of post player that Jaren is, he's more post turnarounds and stuff. They played through Carmelo for like 4 Olympics in a row, basically. So I think that you're going to see a lot of them playing through Jaren. I think you're going to get to see a lot of these counters he's been working on. And I also think you're going to see him get better as a passer out of like some double teams and stuff. Because like you said, he's never really been double teamed before because he was never, like the main option on offense. So
yeah, he said it on the pod. He said on the Paul George pod, he's like, I've never been really double before. So he's like, I've never been double.
Yeah. It's like and it's just something like you got to get used to it. Like if you've never been double teamed at any level, and then now you're getting double teamed in the NBA, like it's gonna take you a minute to kind of get used to that. So I think he's gonna see doubles in FIBA. If he plays as well as I think he can, then he's gonna see some doubles, maybe some triples in FIBA. I don't know. Just because we've seen guys like Rudy Gobert and FIBA have just feasted, and I think that Jaren's more. I think that Jaren is more talented offensively than Gobert is overall. So, if you're saying that he can dominate, like, not to say that he's just some slouch or something, but I think that it's very possible that Jaren surprises a lot of people. Nah, he's not going to surprise me, but he's going to surprise a lot of people in the FIBA World Cup. People that, only watch the Grizzlies for a couple games every year, or if they're on ESPN, might be surprised by some of the stuff Jaren does in the FIBA World Cup. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how his training so far has helped him. And also, see where he is at FIBA and see how much better he is even after FIBA. Because, there's still going to be time between FIBA and the regular season. So, see how much better he can even get in that time. But just based on what I've seen so far, obviously it's just like a sliver of all the work he's put together. I think that he's working on the right stuff just overall.
Yeah, I agree. I know people were going crazy about Jaren shooting mid-range jump shots, which is kind of funny. But that's never really the biggest for me personally. It's not my focus because Jaren shoots his jumper is very low, so his percentage of shooting or getting that off against a bigger bigs is going to be kind of tough. No disrespect to Jaren. He's a solid 3-point shooter. That's all I care about, really. We've seen guys with lower jump shots have success. Sean Marion, 4-time All-Star. We've seen it. It works as long as you get results. I care more about what you talk about, the counters. That's what I care about because I think people, watch Jaren and they'd be like, all he does is kind of go left, and then if he gets cut off going left, like he can't do anything else. And it's kind of the case, but it also isn't. It's just that he hasn't done it as much as he used to because if people go watch Jaren's rookie tape, he did a lot more countering, and because JB Bickerstaff had him playing out the post. Like he took threes, but that's the lowest amount of threes he took in his career. Like he only took like 2. And last year was the lowest amount of threes he's took since that year, because he now understands the balance of inside out. But it wasn't as low as 2.4, like it was 4.5. So we still taking like 5 a game. So, I think he kind of has to, again, I think, get back to what he was doing basically his rookie year, which you saw a lot more of him using his right hand in the rookie year. And to some extent, I'm not saying he has to just go be straight right hand dominant. I think he can get to a point where we've seen with other guys before, even a guy on our team, Zach Randolph, where Zach barely used his right hand, but you weren't stopping him going left. Like, you just weren't stopping him going left. Like, Jaren could get to that level of guy, in my opinion, to some extent. Like, you're just not going to stop him going left. Like, he's too strong, too agile. Like, so he could get to that point. But again, I think you always need the counters just to sharpen up your game, just in case you get in that situation. And again, a lot of this stuff, that's why I like the FIBA tournament, or like the FIBA for him, because he's getting the actual reps to improve stuff like this, whether that's seeing doubles, whether that's him, playmaking. Like he even said it, like you can't really improve playmaking by working on it, even though you can, but like you really need the reps, like actual game reps to work on it. And so like seeing defenses guard you a different way and you having to process it. So, I think that's obviously going to be big for him, especially in the FIBA tournament. I think, like you said, like he's easily more talented than Rudy Gobert, offensively at least. Again, like we're talking about a guy that averaged basically 19 points last year, and then for his career he's averaging like I think 16 points a night. Yeah, 16. So it's not like we're talking about like a 25 per game score. But when you're a defensive player of the year, usually a lot of those guys are not averaging like 20 points a night. And usually if you are, you're one of like the top 15 players. Like you're usually like a Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, because he's made a couple defense teams. Like you're usually one of those guys. So, I think with Jaren, I'm encouraged to see the counters more than the mid range shooting. Like if he shoots mid range, cool. If he can get them all, cool.
Look, I'm gonna tell you, man. Look, because I know you saw my tweet about the mid range jumpers too. I know you saw it. Yeah, I know you saw it because look, this is my only thing with it. I'm not saying he has to shoot it a lot, and I know, like you said, he has a low jumper. But for me, it's like I'm thinking about like if you're guarding Jaren, as soon as he puts the ball on the floor, you know he's going to the rim. Like he doesn't do any like that would be the only thing, which is why like I think it just keeps the defense honest. I don't think he's ever going to be like a high level mid-range jump shooter, but basically when Jaren has the ball right now, you know he's either going to catch and shoot, he's going to take a dribble and then maybe do a step back. But once he puts the ball on the floor twice, you know he's going to the rim. And I think that's one of the reasons why he gets so many charges. And I think this goes even into like, he has the foul issues. The foul issues haven't even been coming on defense anymore. I think he's fixed a lot of his foul issues defensively, but now he keeps getting put in the foul trouble because of charges and stuff like that. So that's the only reason why I think like I don't think he's ever going to be a high level mid-range shooter. But even if he keeps the defense a little bit more honest, it'll be worth it. Just because, like I said, he gets charges. Everybody knows where he's going. I think the counters will help with that too, because now at least people aren't going to just be sitting on the left hand as much because they know he might get there and then do a spin move and go to the right, more often. So I think that's another reason why that's going to help. Just because in the clips he did do a lot of stuff off the dribble too. I think that's going to be important for him. But I'd like to see him just because when he has taken the few mid ranges, I don't know what the numbers exactly are, but I can think of at least 2 or 3 maybe that he's taken. They've looked okay, man. I think he's taken at least 2 or 3 of them, in 5 or 6 years. So we'll see what happens. But I just think that if he can get his shot off, if he can get the shot off, I think it could be good, because I think there were times last season where if he had that, there's a chance that he would have been an even better scorer. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's still mostly for him going to be catch and shoot, post opportunities and drives. Like that's mostly what he's going to score on. I just think it'll keep the defense a little bit more honest just overall. But I do agree that the most important thing in the entire video was the post work spinning back to the right hand. Like, all of that is much more important than the mid-range jump shot. Like, I'll say that. But I do think that if he develops that could be something big for his game too.
Yeah, I wasn't saying he can't take no jumpers to keep the defense honest. If he do take them, cool. I think he took one, like, I think the first game he played, like the Pelicans game, he took a mid-range jump shot. I don't think I saw a mid-range jumper the whole season after that. I don't think I saw one. I don't think, maybe one more. But that was the one I remember because he made it. That was one of the few shots he made that game. I think he shot like three. Like, he shot abysmal that game. But that was, getting the rust off. So yeah, like if he takes those, keep the defense honest, cool. You know what I mean? But again, I'm more so like the counters, and even like what they were showing, like he was going more off of 2 feet, which I think helps him out too. Because I like to see him get to the free throw line more. If he ain't gonna have the mid-range jump shot like that, I like to see him get to the free throw line more. He averaged as many a career high free throw attempts last year, 4.9, basically 5 a night. Usually the guys that are top of the league that are like 20-point scorers for real, they usually get like 7 or maybe 8. I mean, I think Embiid gets the line like 9, 10 times. Like those guys, like usually you got to know how to get to the line and be able to force the refs to make a call. So I think that's going to be big for him too. Obviously, getting his 3-point shooting back up to a certain extent. I mean, obviously he shot 36% last year, but obviously maybe a little bit more volume, not crazy volume, but the same, like just a higher percentage, I guess, on the same volume would be cool. And then obviously the playmaking, I think will get better. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to see him in FIBA. Because I think some of this stuff will obviously get shown, like he'll be able to show some of this in the game, especially playing with Steve Kerr or under Steve Kerr, where, he plays kind of like a motion offense. Like he plays like how, they're modern bigs. Like he plays modern basketball, so I'm not really worried about him getting pigeonholed into a role. So, I think it'll be good for him. And yeah, I mean, again, I would like for him to keep defense honest. I don't know if he's going to take him. He might just be like, oh, well, if I can get to the rim, because a lot of his fouls, I'll say last thing, he usually has a chicken wing. What I mean by chicken wing, you might not be able to see it, but he'll throw that arm out too much, that offhand, and that's usually those offensive foul calls because he tries to extend too much instead of like kind of keeping it, like he extends it to the point where he's kind of pushing off like it's football, and then they're going to call that. So that's really where his biggest issue comes from, the foul thing, because even though they know he's going to the rim, you could still be stronger than them and beat him to the spot, but you trying to extend is, messing that up. So, I think that doing less of that also while keeping the defense honest with mid-range, have more counters, I think will help his offensive game. So, I'm excited to see him, what he does is, I think it was in August. I think it was when it starts, the FIBA stuff. So, yeah, I'm ready to see what he does because I think he'll be one of their best 3 to 5 players, at worst.
Oh, yeah, and I think that Steve Kerr has really talked about how he's going to be really important to the team, mostly on defense, but also that's somebody who has seen, what Jaren can do firsthand, in the playoffs, in big moments. Obviously, he had a couple of good games in that Warrior series last year, especially I think it was Game 5 after Ja went out. He had a really good game, and they when they lost in that Game 6, I know he missed the last shot, but they really struggled to get stops on Jaren in that game. So I think, seeing it from the other side, I think Steve Kerr is going to be able to do a lot of things to get, Jaren some good looks, get Jaren some easy looks. And I think it's going to be good overall. I'm happy with the roster they made. I know a lot of people have been talking about the roster. Maybe it's not as good as people were thinking, but overall, like we'll probably talk about, give a full FIBA preview a little bit later in the summer, as we get down closer to it. But like the team as a whole, I think is going to be fine. Like I don't really have any issues with it. The biggest names usually don't play in the FIBA World Cup anyway. So like that's why I was kind of surprised that people were worried about the team. And I was like, I mean, they still got all-stars on the team. They still got guys like Brandon Ingram. Jalen Brunson might not have made an all-star team, but that is an all-star level player. Like we know that Jaren is an all-star level player. They got a lot of good guys. Like they're going to be really good. I don't really have any issues with the team, and I think Jaren's going to be good in it overall. But I just want to say thank you to everybody that listened to this episode. Definitely a little bit of a longer episode this week, but I appreciate everybody that stuck around for it. And yeah, as always, me and Alex are going to be back next week here on the Bluff City Media Podcast Network on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see y'all in the next episode.